Hey everyone, so glad you can join us for another edition of Let's Go Outdoors. I'm Michael Short. You know, when it comes to conflicts between humans and bears, we tend to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what's going on in the bear's head. Why did the bear attack? Why did it come into my backyard and destroy property and so on? Well, you know, instead of looking at the issue of a problem bear, we should be turning the attention towards ourselves. It's not a bear problem. They're doing what comes naturally. Rather, it's a people problem. Courtney Hughes has been looking at this issue for a good number of years. She is currently the chair of the Grizzly Bear Task Team with Alberta Environment and Parks. I sat down with her to talk about this issue and specifically the work she and others are doing surrounding grizzly bears in the Peace River area. Yes, there are grizzlies in that part of the province.
You're right. I think people who are local know that we have grizzly bears up there, but lots of folks really just focus on what's happening in the southern parts of the province, on that kind of western front. So it's really important to highlight we do have bears, we do have people coexisting with bears across this shared landscape, whether that's private landowners in the agricultural setting, residents of small communities, or industry stakeholders in petroleum and forestry industries. And it's really important for people to be acknowledged that, you know, their voices are heard. We do have grizzlies out there on the landscape. They are making a living in human-dominated spaces, but we also have some conflicts. We have some problems. Oftentimes, it's solvable problems, whether it's attractant-related, so food or garbage or other things that bears are going to sniff out and come by residences or industry camps for. And then, you know, the flip side of that is the safety aspect for recreational users or other users, industry included, even ourselves as government, carrying bear spray and staying safe. So it's awareness building, it's understanding that we have coexistence and that we are living on this landscape with grizzly bears.
Would it be fair to say that Peace River is kind of unique because you do have so much of those elements literally on the doorstep, unlike some other areas in southern Alberta where it's predominantly there's some ranching, but not an awful lot of oil and gas, and then tourism and the recreational user. But you've kind of got it all going on. You've got residents that live in the area, you've got landowners, you've got forestry, gas and oil, plus the recreational component as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a really multi-use landscape up in the northwest, and I don't think that's really apparent to lots of folks across Alberta, elsewhere, or elsewhere in Canada for that matter. And also importantly, we have different First Nations and Métis communities that live adjacent to or right within, or use the land right within Grizzly Bear Range. So we have a really mixed use of landscape, and folks are learning how to live with bears, and I think that's improving over time.
So was there a moment where collectively the community said, hey, we better sit down and take a look at this and what we're doing, how we're interacting with bears and other wildlife in this area?
Yeah, so a lot of the industry stakeholders from the forestry side as well as the petroleum industry and ATCO actually as a utility transmission and production company had meetings with our government staff in the Peace River area so 2012 and a little previous to that, to identify some of the knowledge gaps and needs that we have for understanding our bears in the Northwest. And for whatever reasons, that kind of laid dormant for a while. And when I was back up in Peace River, when I moved there about 3 years ago now, I thought that was a great initiative, and there were some really solid things that were done in that industry stakeholder group. And so we rekindled that 3 years ago. And since then, we've had a terms of reference, operating guidelines for what we're going to achieve, and part of that being predominantly the population inventory. Because Bear Management Area 1 has been a big kind of black hole in terms of grizzly bear knowledge. There's not been a lot done. It's a difficult landscape to work in. Boreal, wetlands, you get a quarter inch of rain and it's tough to get anywhere. But folks on the industry side, the operators, they're seeing bears. How many? We don't know, right? So lots of folks would say, well, I've seen a bear, and someone else said, well, I've seen a bear. And if they talk, that becomes 2 bears, or maybe 3 bears, or 4 bears. When in fact, that might be 1 bear just making his way back and forth in his range. So the population inventory was a big knowledge gap to address for the stakeholder group, and also aligns with the grizzly bear recovery plan that Alberta has.
So I guess just to follow up on that question, how long has the inventory study been taking place, and what has it told you to date?
Yeah, so for the past 2 years, previous to now, we were testing the utility of a DNA capture, so hair snag, similar to what they've done in southwestern Alberta with Andrea Morehouse and elsewhere, following the spatially explicit capture-recapture protocols for conducting this type of assessment. And so essentially, we proved to ourselves that it could work. We can do this across this landscape. It's a little more challenging because we have a lot of remote area, despite having also a level of footprint that is, concerning for different species, including grizzlies. So this year we actually kicked off our formal collection starting in May. May 15th was the first week we were out. I helped Lyle Fullerton, my colleague, set up the hair snags, and from then on we've had a wealth of different government staff as well as some volunteers helping to go out with these 10 to 12 day collection windows to collect the DNA, so the hair, off of these barbed wires that are set in a certain habitat site that's high graded for bears in a 10 by 10 kilometer grid cell, so that would be corresponding essentially to our Alberta Township system. Across our entire bear management area, so we have over 270 hair snake sites set up, and they're set up in a perimeter with a lure attractant, so a scent attractant in the center of that to bring the bears in. Some of the sites have camera traps, and we have some really great camera pictures of not only grizzly bears, lots of black bears. What lots means, we don't know yet. We're hoping to conduct an inventory on the black bear hair we've also collected, and lots of other critters that are coming to these hair snakes.
So when and then at what point do you actually sit down and say, okay, we've got X number of individual bears coming in and out of the area?
Yeah, so that's the tough part. So we are now, I think we have conservatively over 3,000 individual hair sample packets of bear hair. Now that is likely a good combination of black bear and grizzly bear hair, but we have to go through those samples. We have to enter those individual sample packets into our data sheet, so into our Excel file, and after that we are sending that to Wildlife Genetics in British Columbia to conduct the DNA assessment. So hopefully by next year we'll have that population assessment and the actual inventory. So the range of bears, rather than an individual number, it's a range of bears. It's just an easier way to deal with population management rather than an individual target number.
I know it's never polite to ask a scientist to speculate, but given the type of response that you've seen on the snares, are you optimistic that the numbers might be fairly healthy?
So it's a good question, one we get often. One of the challenges that you have in conducting a spatially explicit capture-recapture project is you have to estimate the number of bears you think you have in order to set up your model parameters. And so some of the former assessments that have been conducted by Foothills Research Institute, Gord Stenhouse, as well as others who've collaborated on estimating bears given similar habitat in other bear management areas, because we don't have a resource selection function, so the habitat information for Bear Management Area 1 from collared bears. The range goes from about 30 individual bears to, over 70 individual bears. The challenge we have in our bear management area is that it's connected to British Columbia, and we don't have a sense of what the bear movement is. Luckily for this population inventory, we have been able to partner with the Fort St. John office, and they have around 30 different hair snake sites set up on their side of the British Columbia border, so that'll help us with understanding a little bit of movement of these bears. They can put their nose to the ground and just book it. So we're hoping we have somewhere within that range that was estimated before, but we really don't know, and it's tough to tell. Some of the other challenges are, bears, and where we're seeing bears this year, are they actually coming to our sites? It's a probability type of model, so in terms of will bears actually go to that site and visit that site, and will they leave hair if they go to that site? We're hoping. We do use cameras to try and capture that as well.
So, based on, I guess, the ultimate number, whatever that number is, will that have an impact on the types of programs that get established, the types of protocols that workers and recreationalists and people that live in the area, or is it one size fit all?
Yeah, it's definitely not one size fit all. One of the things that was really important in the grizzly bear recovery plan, and I was fortunate enough to help participate in revising this upcoming draft or final plan, is that we do recognize each bear management area is unique. So we are not like southwestern Alberta. We're not like central Alberta. We are Bear Management Area 1. So we have different constraints on the landscape. We have different types of activities on the landscape. And so whether or not the number tells us anything about bears is great from a population management perspective, but from how we move forward into management, we'll still need to follow reducing human-caused mortality. We'll still need to look at reducing human-bear conflicts through attractant management and other education and outreach. And we're still looking at access density thresholds for different types of habitat across the bear management area.
Obviously, whatever the plan is, it needs buy-in from a number of folks in different sectors. What has the relationship been with oil and gas, forestry, the municipality, recreational users? All of them need to sort of say, hey, we're respecting the work, but we also want to participate and see the plans through.
Absolutely. So I think the biggest gain, the biggest benefit that we've had with our industry stakeholder group is that it is comprised of different companies that operate in the area, from small to large, across Bear Management Area 1. And also, these folks are the people who live on the landscape. And oftentimes, because they're wearing multiple hats, they might be private landowners and have a small acreage. They might have a farm that they're running. In addition to being an operator out of the landscape, they might also be a trapper and a hunter. So they kind of wear each hat that we're talking about. And by having this participation and collaboration and open communication, we're actually able to get out into the community more through our different networks. The other thing that we're doing through our Alberta Bear Smart program is that education outreach. So sharing what we're doing on the Grizzly Bear Project, sharing how we're hoping to advance grizzly bear recovery so that we can meet our needs for the province, but also for our bear management area, I think is a really important part.
So there's, just coming back to, I guess, a segment of our society that from time to time kind of say, well, I know there's this many bears, and this is just, we're spinning our wheels. Why is it important that we get a handle on the bears, their numbers, and more importantly, how they're interacting with us?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's lots of, from a scientific perspective, understanding the population range of bears in the province is important to fulfill some of the criteria for recovery plan, meeting those objectives. And also for our management, so understanding what a healthy, sustainable population is, number of reproducing individuals, the habitat component, mortality, etc. From kind of a social dimensions perspective, lots of different people have lots of different motivations, desires, interests, agendas. And so, folks to ask us, well, what are you going to do about the bears? And invariably, grizzly bear hunting comes up, other management actions. So people are on both sides. It spans the spectrum of what people want to see for grizzly bears. Ecotourism, hunting opportunities, just leave the bears where they are. And I think it's important to understand all aspects of grizzly bear recovery from both that population biology perspective as well as the human dimensions perspective.
Given that the Peace River area is so unique, are there still, though, lessons or tactics that you are developing up there that could be applied in other areas of the province when it comes to our interaction with bears? Yeah,
so I think I'm going to shift it and say I think it's based on our interaction with people, because people are part of the solution, a really big part of the solution. And if we want bears on the landscape, for whatever reasons we want bears on the landscape, we have to be part of that solution. And so one of the things I think other bear management areas might look to is how we've worked with our industry stakeholders and other public members around our collaborative team to working to implement grizzly bear recovery as well as long-term bear management. And then, what do we need to do with bears? Really keep your garbage picked up. If you pack it in, pack it out. Keep your pet food picked up, bird seed. We've got, even with black bears, we've got lots of bears searching out food this time of year, and that's all they're thinking of. So keeping a clean yard site or campsite and being safe. Carrying bear spray, number one. It's your first line of defense, and know how to use it. No, don't just carry bear spray.
So, looking at, again, up in that region, looking at the different programs that you're trying to pull together, and one of them that kind of stood out to me was this app that has been developed, and I think you had a lot to do with that. Talk about how that is helping you and engaging the average person that maybe doesn't have a science background, but can go out and provide information that helps overall in terms of better understanding population and movement, that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Grizz Tracker app is a citizen science-based platform where we're engaging local stakeholders from all walks across Bear Management Area 1 to report their grizzly bear sightings. Now, we were getting reports in various ways, sometimes an email, a text, a phone call, sometimes a slip of paper left in a windshield, which is all great. People are interested and they want to share. The problem is the information isn't standardized, and then we have to digitize that. So we have to put it into some kind of format to make it meaningful. And then it's still just a one-off observation. So we don't actually know a really important piece for science, for scientific decision making, is the observer effort. So how long were people, quote unquote, searching for grizzly bears, whether or not that was their goal for the day. And so using the Grizz Tracker app with a very important component of recording observer effort, so how long people are out looking for bears, is the basis of our Grizz Tracker app. And it also captures people's interests. On the website we'll have products. We have a blog right now kind of running, updating the public on what we're doing and how. We have mapped products that'll go on there that'll show relative locations of where grizzlies have been sighted, with the caveat that we want to protect the location of bears for potentially some nefarious purposes. And we also have some really awesome camera trap photos. So sows with cubs and their antics at these sites, and people really get interested in that. And so the whole point is, if people are interested and we can provide them some education on what the scientific processes are for recording these bear observations and how we need to use this information in our population monitoring and our management of grizzly bears, we're building that stewardship ethic, and we're also building that participation in science.
What's been the take-up on the app itself and the participation level? It's
actually been really great. We've had, so again, our industry stakeholder group has been tremendous support. So we have had some grant funding between FRIA, so the Forestry Resources Improvement Association of Alberta, for the Grizz Tracker app, as well as for our DNA project. So we've been successful there. And then from a actual user perspective, we have well over 70 users of the Grizz Tracker app. And because this year we're still kind of fine-tuning and tweaking the app utility, we're noticing that it's working, actually. We're actually collecting the track logs. Everyone is anonymous when they sign up to the app. We don't see who individuals are. We just see, a track log, basically a GPS route of where an individual might be. And if they see a grizzly bear, they mark that sighting. And it's actually working, which is pretty cool.
And once again, my thanks to Courtney Hughes. Till next time, I'm Michael Short. Let's go outdoors.